I put out a poll over on my Patreon to see what you would like me to ramble about next, and a great majority of you voted on therapy. So, therapy. What is it? Where is it? How do you get it? Let me tell you, but first of all, please just note that I am not a professional. I am just someone on the internet that has been in your shoes and just as somebody who was once completely clueless as to how to actually start looking for help. So that is what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about all the important stuff first, and then we can get into the actual update on me because I did a ramble before when I was with BetterHelp, but I am no longer seeking therapy through BetterHelp. I now have better insurance and I now have a new therapist. So, yay me. But anyway, let's jump into the beefy, the nitty-gritty, the all the important details, okay? So, to start, you have to know what exactly is wrong with you. But I don't mean to say it like that. I mean, realize that you need help. Accept in yourself that you need help. Then you can actually start looking and you have the motivation to do so. And you need to know exactly what you're looking for. So you should look for somebody that specializes in your needs. But, you also need to know what and who is available in your area. So you need a therapist. But there are multiple kinds of therapists. Do you need a counselor, a psychiatrist, a psychologist, or someone who does that but also specializes in yoga? I don't know. There's a variety of people in this field, so it's important to educate yourself on the difference first. And just based on personal experience, try to find out how long they've been doing that job because I was once paired with an intern once and that did not go so well for me. That's not to say that interns can't get the job done, but I just needed somebody who has more experience and could handle my shit with a bit more kindness. I'll leave that at that. But the next most important thing before actually starting therapy is insurance. Now, for me, it was step one, get a job, get a better job. And I did that. That's why I'm able to actually find like an actual therapist now instead of just paying everything out of pocket with BetterHelp, because that was the crappiest thing about BetterHelp is that each session cost about like you could either pay like for X amount of sessions in advance for like a month. There was a monthly fee, or you could pay like per session, and that was like $60 to $80 a session. It's a lot. So, step one, get a job. Step two, pick the right plan of insurance. But I also understand when it comes to insurance, not everybody is fortunate, and let alone to have insurance that covers mental health services is truly a blessing and an investment. And if you do have insurance, it would be listed as mental health or behavioral health. Under my plan, it's also listed as substance abuse services. So find out about the outpatient and inpatient services, okay? So, outpatient is like typical therapy. So, you sit in an office for 50 minutes to an hour, or sometimes it's even less than that. I've seen some. And then you can go home. Even better if it's teledoc, so you don't even have to leave your home. You could just do it over the phone or your computer. It's that easy. And that's what I do now. So, I like it that way. It also like puts like as somebody on the autism spectrum, it like helps with like I find that I don't have to mask as much if they're behind a screen, if that makes sense. So it's less exhausting for me. And it's just, I feel like we can get along a lot better if we have that sort of distance. So that's just me, but I do recommend trying in person if you can. But if you have to switch to teledoc, go right ahead. Now, for inpatient services, that includes a stay in a hospital. But there is a chance that your insurance would require some kind of pre authorization before they would even cover that. So please just learn everything you can about that. I'm not saying that you'll eventually end up in a hospital for mental health services, but it's important to be prepared. So, as for me, my copay is $20 for an office visit. So, that is all I have to pay per therapy session. But yours could be different. So I just highly recommend contacting your insurance company and asking a lot of questions, such as, what is my copay? What percentage is covered? Do I have a limit as to the amount of sessions that I am able to visit? And also, if you end up getting prescribed medication, find out the coverage for that as well, so that way you're not surprised at the pharmacy. And this can all be very scary. I know, but I promise you, just take your time, learn everything there is to learn about it, and you'll be much more prepared for the next step, which is to find a therapist. Now, as I've said before, there's a bunch of different practices and options for you. And I was recommended to find a therapist through psychologytoday.com. That was, well, my primary doctor as well as my gynecologist suggested that I go through that search engine. But I soon realized that not everybody in my area is actually listed on Psychology Today, or like let alone in some of the blue books in my other insurance companies I've been with. But for instance, like on the website, I put in everything that I needed help with, and it all filtered on down to one person in my area, and she was booked months in advance. It was impossible. I was never going to see her. But I looked into her profile. I looked through her Indeed, which, yeah, if you find a new doctor, you got to get nosy, you know? Um, I found the office where she worked at. I looked up that office, found their website, and I found all of their list of therapists and counselors that are in like the offices that they're with. And that was how I found the therapist that I am with today. And things have been going a lot better. And it's also worth mentioning that bad therapists do exist. Some offices don't even care about you at all. And it's unfortunate to say that, but this is reality. There are facilities that will never pick up the phone, never call you back when they say they will, never respond to your voicemails nor your emails. And it's so unfortunate because during this age where mental health is finally getting recognition, it's sad, but it's true. But my advice is just to keep on searching. You have to filter through them and try things out. And as the old saying goes, it's like just don't give up, don't lose hope. You will find somebody that is willing to work with you. And if something doesn't feel right, like your therapist isn't meeting you at the same level, or they're not listening to you, they interrupt you, they're always late. I had a problem once where my therapist was always late and it like took away from my time. Just, or like even if you just don't feel like you're improving at all and you've been with them for X amount of sessions, don't continue to dedicate your time and money to them. Do your research and find someone else. And you don't have to make a big deal out of it either. I mean, it is a courtesy to let them know that you no longer are seeking their services or you want to switch with somebody else, but don't feel the need to do that. It's not necessary. It's not necessary to tell your therapist that you're breaking up with them. It's very awkward. And chances are they will understand. If they're a professional, they'll understand. I mean, if it doesn't feel right, absolutely call the office and ask if you can be matched with somebody else. Or if you have a different name in the same office that you wanted to go to, like drop them a line and then see if they would be available next, because that's what I had to do with this new place that I found once I got the insurance that I had now. I was with this one therapist for about a month and I just didn't like the way that she was trying to work with me. I felt like she wasn't meeting me at my level and it just wasn't working out. So I called the office. I asked if somebody else was available and I got matched with somebody else and now I'm with them now and things have been going well now. But at least if you are with a good therapist and you need to take a break, like let's say that you ran into some money problems and you can't afford therapy for a while, just be open about it. Talk about it with them. They'll understand and let the office know as well. And that way, if they're a professional, they shouldn't have a problem with you taking a break or let alone switching therapists. So it's okay. You have options. And yeah, I know it's hard. I know it's rough, but it's so worth it in the end. But just, you got to give it a shot and, just filter through and you will find somebody eventually. And just be willing to work as well. I know it's scary, but you have to be willing to take a chance and to dedicate the time and the money and, work on improving yourself and be open to new experiences and new thoughts in the world, because that's what I'm working on right now, is just reframing how I view my life and just having like a better quality of life is what we're focusing on right now. But as of right now, like since I just told you about all the important stuff, and I am willing to answer questions if you have any, um, I'd just like to offer a bit of insight as to how I ended up here, just in case you haven't seen my last ramble. So, I started seeking therapy in 2020 after I graduated college and I had the worst year in my life. I was at rock bottom for a variety of reasons. And I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome when I was 10 years old. And before you start dabbling on in the comment section going, Asperger's syndrome doesn't exist anymore. You shouldn't be using that word. If you use that word still, you're a Nazi. Stop it. Stop it. I'm only being correct in my diagnosis. I am on the autism spectrum. Okay? That's never going to change. And I also have a long, deep history of trauma, bullying, sexual, emotional, verbal, physical abuse. And I've been the outcasted weird kid throughout all of my school years. And since starting therapy, I have been diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, situational depression, regular depression, as well as, more recently, PTSD. And you know what? It took a long time for me to get that diagnosis. And it was so validating to finally be told that I have that. And it took way longer than it should have to be diagnosed with PTSD because whenever I worked with a new therapist, I've been through 5, by the way, as of now. They always focused on adverse childhood experiences, which, if you don't know what that means, it's like this test to see, like, to rate your experiences, like when you were a child before you reached the age of 18. Did this happen to you? Blah, 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 blah. I mean, you can look it up. I think it's just called adverse childhood experiences, something like that. And I scored pretty high on that test. But it wasn't until I actually found a therapist that I have now that recognized everything that I've been through and analyzed the long term effects of everything that made me who I am today. And, a lot of the trauma that I have experienced growing up, I didn't even know was trauma. And it's like, it's kind of almost embarrassing to admit that, like I didn't know this, but no regular person suddenly gets a flashback to like being abused or ostracized on a daily basis. You're just going about your day doing a random like chore, or you're like at work or just going about your daily life, and then you're constantly on edge. And you feel like at any moment the tides could turn and people could turn on you if you say the wrong thing or do something wrong. And like you plan your whole day around that. And like every aspect of how you present yourself is based on how or what you think that other people will view you and like how they will treat you. And like that's not normal. And what I would have never known that if I didn't start therapy. And just it's it's a lot. And I just want to be honest. And so right now, I am in the middle of working past my grief and my trauma, and I am in the process of healing my younger self, honoring and paying attention to my inner child as well as my inner teenager. And I'm slowly stepping out of my comfort zone, slowly, and getting back into old hobbies like journaling and reading. Like for some reason, one day I just stopped. Like I didn't know. Like, I don't know why I stopped. Maybe it was just because of too much school or something like that. Or like, I'm just finding things that make me happy now. And, as I said before, I'm mostly just trying to reframe my life because I'm about to turn 27. Like, I'll be officially in my late 20s. And that doesn't feel real. And I recently ended 2 long friendships that I realized that were no longer healthy for me. So I've been alone a lot recently. And I mean, granted, I've always been kind of alone with my problems growing up. And but just right now, that's like really sinking into me because, like, as an adult, you really are alone. And I think my parents always instilled that within me growing up, like, even when I was very young, because they always taught me to, like, try to handle my problems on my own because one day nobody's going to save me. And that's why for a long time I wasn't seeking help because I thought that life was just about suffering, how this was normal. It's like you're a woman. Of course, you're going to be sad because everything is pinned against you. But I think that that was just, growing up Catholic. Not to offend anybody, but that's we don't talk about that enough. And so just with all of like the depression, the anxiety, the rejection sensitive dysphoria, the autism, the anorexia, like all of it, basically I'm working on it. I'm continuing to work on it. And it's not going to be an instant fix either, because like even with my past therapist, every one of them have said that I was trying to work through everything too quickly. But of course I was trying to work through everything like as quickly as possible. I didn't have insurance. I was paying for everything out of pocket. Like shit's expensive. Like come on. But basically it took a lot within me to accept that something was wrong and that I am nowhere near where I thought that I would be at this age. But I'm also learning that it was something that I could never really control in the first place, just all along. And based on all of the circumstances, I feel like I am at a pretty good spot. I have a better job. I have a few side hustles. I'm continuing to improve. I've let go of people who hurt me. I'm better. Even though it doesn't look like it doesn't feel like it, I am better. And but I will also say that therapy wasn't the only thing that helped me get to this point in my life better, and this is honestly kind of embarrassing to admit, but I never saw a gynecologist before until my therapist told me to seek one out. And that was earlier this year. So anyway, I went there for my first exam. They checked me out. I was generally healthy, but of course I had emotional problems and I was still seeking therapy at the time. So they recognized that this was something that I needed help on. So first she started me on magnesium and immediately that improved my energy levels and that put me on a more steady sleep schedule. But it did have one very, very distinct side effect. And that was I was horny all the fucking time. I was distractingly horny, okay? Like it was bad, like bad. Like I'd wake up, I'd be at work, I'd like be at dinner, I'd go to sleep and like it just all the time. All the time. It was just very distracting. So and just sorry if that was TMI, but it's just so you know, that could happen to you too. But everybody is different. But anyway, so then I went to my follow up visit, and me and my doctor had a discussion, and we decided that I should start taking birth control again, but this time at a much lower dosage of estrogen. Because, well, the last time that I was on birth control, I was in a relationship with my ex. And I mean, let alone, I didn't know that I was being abused in that relationship, but I also didn't know that the pill was worsening my depression. And it also made me gain weight. So it was just a whole bunch of bad the first time around when it came to birth control. But overall, I have been on this new pill at a much lower dosage for about 7 months now. And overall, I would say that it has been helping. I'm still anxious. I still get depressed. But before taking birth control, now this is how I know that like the birth control isn't necessarily responsible for my emotions because before I started taking this pill, I was only happy on my period. I'm serious. Like, I was the most energetic, the happiest version of myself when I was on my period. But then as soon as I would start spotting, it'd be down in the dumps for me. Like, and like, just, oh my God. Like, now that I've been on that medication that regulated my period and lightened everything up, got rid of my acne, I've like, just, how did I live with myself? Like, why did I think that that was just how life was? Like, to only be happy 1 week every month or a month and a half, like, that is fucking insane. And it's just, I can't believe that, like, it honestly felt like I was the only one that had ever experienced that. Like, to only be happy while I'm I'm menstruating? Like, I can't believe, like, saying this out loud. Like, I felt like I was the only person in the world that had ever experienced that. But if you are like that, please find a gynecologist and talk about that if you haven't already, because that changed my life. And I'm very fortunate that I found a doctor that listened to me and took me seriously. But, of course, birth control doesn't fix everything. It didn't get rid of my problem entirely. And so, whenever something bad happens, I still overthink everything and I still latch onto bad memories and I get a flashback and I ruminate. And then, well, I had another follow-up visit and honestly, I'm kind of nervous to say this out loud, but just because everybody has different views on it and I feel bad, but I was once somebody who disagreed with this. But ultimately, like, times have changed and I hope that you will understand and just know that I'm coming from a place of, like, I want to let you know that it's okay and I want to be transparent about this. I am now on antidepressants and I don't know much about how it's affecting me right now because I only just started taking it. And trust me, the side effects are very long and very scary, but my doctor and I agreed to explore that option. And I've been told that it'll take about 2 weeks for me to actually start seeing results, but I just want to say that there are options. And it took a very long time for a doctor to prescribe me antidepressants. I mean, my primary doctor dismissed the idea because she deemed my depression as temporary, even though I had experienced symptoms for over 2 years. And so many of my therapists before tried to, just have me talk through my problems and like just try different lifestyle changes and fucking exercise. And it's like, it's not enough. And I can imagine that a lot of the professionals that I did speak to just didn't want to give it to me right away, like they didn't want to just give drugs away. Like they wanted me to try as many alternative solutions as possible so I wouldn't have to resort to more drugs. But I'm just thankful that I found a doctor that would listen to me and realize that this shit isn't going away. And I've been living with this since 2019 and even longer than that. So, I hate to get emotional, but just, I know that everybody has different opinions on it, but it's like, I've accepted that I need help. And I hope that you find the courage in your heart to seek help too. Because I can't imagine where I would be right now if I didn't seek help. And, right now it's too early to tell about the antidepressants, but I'm sure I'll give you guys an update somehow. But at least I can tell you now that things are getting better. I just hate that it's such a slow, slow process. And if you made it this far, thank you so much for listening. And I hope that I helped you a lot. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. and I'll try to help you as best I can. And with that, my name is Kaylee. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you want, and I shall see you in the next audio. Bye-bye.